Hi, my name is Renford Reese. I'm a political science professor at Cal Poly Pomona and the director of the Colorful Flags program. Today, we're here to conduct an interview which is a part of the Prison Race series, which examines prison culture, the dynamics of race in prisons, and the challenges facing parolees in their efforts to reintegrate back into society. One objective of this series is to examine the criminal justice system from a multi-ethnic perspective, from those who have been immersed in the system. We're fortunate today to have one of my favorite students, one of my favorite former students, David Sexton. He's here to share with us some of his insights of his experiences in the criminal justice system. Welcome, David.
Hello, Dr. Reese.
So first of all, if you could just give us some background information on yourself. I know in class you've alluded to, and personally with me in our meetings, you've alluded to your troubled past. Could you just give us some information about your background?
Sure. I came from a middle-class family. The term dysfunctional wasn't around at the time, but I guess you could say it was a dysfunctional family. My father was a biker gang member. He divorced my mom when I was young. I still had contact with him, but, you know, I was still immersed in that type of environment from him. And he was murdered when I was 12 years old. And then my mother had remarried, and the relationship was fueled by alcohol and domestic violence. My aunt, who I was very close to, committed suicide when I was 14. 2 weeks before she committed suicide, she woke me up in the middle of the night and told me that if anything happened to her, it was the police that did it. And when I was 15, my uncle, who was like my surrogate father, I was very close to him, very close to him. He also committed suicide. So by that time, you know, I was a mess. Mentally, emotionally, everything. It was just my world. Everything I loved and everybody I loved was dead, you know.
So when was your first offense, criminal offense?
When I turned 15.
What was it? Could you tell us about it?
It was me and two other guys broke into a concession stand at a baseball diamond, so it was burglary.
And what were the consequences?
Probation. But then my uncle, the one who killed himself, was trying to have me come live with him, and in order to keep that from happening, my mother said I was incorrigible and had me sent to a boys' ranch, Vermont Boys Ranch in Glen Helen. And I did 6 months there.
Okay. Now, what about your drug usage? When did you start to use drugs?
Well, I first tried marijuana when I was 9. I drank, off and on from that age. But I really began to get heavy into drugs when I was 15. I was a garbage can addict. I'd do anything as long as it got you high. It didn't matter to me.
So just consistently from the time that you were 15?
Yes.
Until when?
Until I was 33.
Okay. So tell us about some other offenses that you had from an early age. You say you went to the boys' home, but then what happened after you got out of the boys' home? Were you corrected? Were your problems dealt with at the boys' home?
Well, they attempted to correct my problems. I will give them that. It was a nice place. They attempted to address some of my emotional issues. But actually, when I was there, that's when my uncle killed himself. And my mom had called me up on the phone and told me, "Guess what?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, your uncle killed himself." She didn't even bother to come in and tell me in person or anything. And that was quite a shock. And after that, all their help that they had tried to give me kind of fell to the wayside. And one of the things about being there was you got to work out a lot. So I worked out quite a bit, and by the time I got out, I was strong and still getting high, and was able to commit my second offense, which was strong armed robbery. You know, so they kind of primed me for the ability to create a worse offense.
Okay, so what happened with the strong armed robbery?
There was a guy selling flowers on the side of the road, and me and two guys, we were high on PCP, and he was going to hand him, say he was going to give him a 20, and he was going to get 2 10s, and when the guy handed him the 2 10s, he was going to snatch the 2 10s, and we were going to drive off. And the guy wouldn't go for it, and I was very, very high. And I don't know, I just jumped out of the car and wrestled him to the ground and put my arm around his neck and told him, if you don't give me your money, I'll break your neck. And so he gave me the money, and I jumped up, and there was a fire truck that was watching this whole thing going on, and the firemen started chasing me, and they drove off, and I ran away, and I got away and spent the money on more drugs, and took off to with some friend of mine. We were going to go to Kentucky or some place like that, and I ended up coming back, and when I went to my mom's house to take a shower, the cops showed up, and I was arrested.
Okay, and then what happened after you were arrested?
I spent, I want to say 10 months, maybe a year in juvenile hall until I was 18. And then after I was like a couple months after my 18th birthday, they released me and just back into the world.
Okay, so then this is all preceding you actually going to state penitentiary in California.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens now that you're 18 years old, you're out, are you still using drugs, or have you taken a break from using drugs, or have you tried to kind of rehabilitate yourself?
Well, I took a break, I would say. I was still smoking weed, but I was working for my uncle and doing construction, and, you know, that was hard physical work, so you couldn't really, you know, get high. And I just got tired of it, and I started hanging out with these guys that partied, and, you know, just from there I just fell back into drug use, heavy drug use.
Like what types of drugs?
Methamphetamines.
That was the primary drug?
That was my drug of choice, yes.
Right. So what did you do to get the drugs if you were not working? Have you been fired from your job?
Well, actually, I met a girl who sold. She was a few years older than me, and she happened to like me. So I hooked up with her, and she kept me high and my friends high and gave me money. So I essentially prostituted myself out. You know?
Right.
You know, so that's how I kept high. And she taught me how to survive on methamphetamines, how to eat, how to sleep, how to function, you know, and still appear normal.